Strength does not come from winning. Your struggles develop your strengths. When you go through hardships and decide not to struggle, not to surrender, that is strength. And that's Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, we obviously associate Arnold Schwarzenegger with strength training, resistance training. But I think this one is great when we think about strength training, because in order to build muscle strength, you are going to have to push out your comfort zone. And what I mean by that is you're going to have to push your muscles to the point of fatigue. So these exercises are never going to feel easy. They're always, and if they do, you're always trying to look at and push a little bit harder to try and find that you're challenging your muscles. So I'm going to move my cat here. So what I'm trying to say with that is, it's not, if the exercises, when it says strength does not come from winning, if you felt that every time you worked out, everything felt really easy and you felt like you were on top of it all and you never had a struggle with it, you're probably not getting any stronger. So it's your struggles that develop your strength. It's taking those last few repetitions to the point of fatigue and then allowing them to recover in the recovery period over the next day. That's what's going to really build the strength. So it's when you go through hardships and decide not to surrender, that is strength. So it's when you're finding these exercises challenging, sometimes you might ache for a couple of days afterwards, but you turn up the next time and you repeat it. And we keep working through that process and you're deciding not to surrender. That is strength. And that is where you're going to build your muscle strength as well as some psychological strength along with this. So yeah, really want you to have a think about that quote and know that it's not always going to be an easy process to build muscle strength. It's something you're going to have to work and commit to. But just one last time, strength does not come from winning. Your struggles develop your strengths. When you go through hardships and decide not to surrender, that is strength. So just keep that in mind over the next week, because I think that's a really, really nice quote there from Arnold Schwarzenegger. So welcome back. This is another of our live weekly Q&As. So here is your chance to ask me any questions that you might have about strength training as an older adult. That could be something to do with just getting started. It could be that you've got started but you're struggling with an exercise. You're not quite sure about some of the concepts or the gym language that you hear people talk about. Anything that you feel that you've got a question on mind, there are no stupid questions. Feel free to ask away. So if you're watching this live, so we just started this at 12 o'clock, you can go through and use the chat feature or the comment section and you can type in your questions. They'll come up, flag up to me, and I'll bring them on screen and we can go through those. You might well be watching this after I've finished, but still do write comments with your questions and I will be checking them over the next week or over the next few weeks, and then I will answer that in a future week's Q&A, and then I will then send a link to you with that answer. If you haven't already, please do make sure that you subscribe to the Never Told to Lift YouTube channel, because that will make sure that you get notified every time that we put out another one of the Q&As. But I'm also going to be doing, from February, I'm committing to doing 2 videos a month, or they're going to be a bit more structured videos that are a bit edited, that are going to kind of look at one particular sort of theory or one particular kind of concept and dig deep into that. So again, make sure you are subscribed. If you're watching this on YouTube now, you can just click the button in the bottom right hand corner of the screen to subscribe there. And then as always really helpful if you can click the thumbs up button at the bottom, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook. That helps to kind of help their algorithms send this video out to more people, so that more people can see it and potentially get started with strength training and have that positive impact on their life. So as always, I have got 3 questions that I'm come prepared with that I've been asked throughout the week. Some of these were emailed through to me, so if you don't want to publicly put your name on YouTube or on Facebook, but you still have a question, then you can send me a question. It's chris@nevertoldtolift.com. And that's what these people did. So I can answer those questions here without putting your name and keep you anonymous. So the first question, can I use fixed weights machines, or do I need to use free weights? So anyone who may have looked at the Never Taught to Lift ebook, which is also the paperback up there, or they might have gone through the Stronger for Life course, they'll know that I tend to recommend compound lifts or functional movement patterns with free weights. So when I say free weights, I mean dumbbells, barbells, could be kettlebells, something along those lines. And those compound lift or functional movement patterns tend to be things like squats, deadlift type motion, lunges. Could be anything where we're doing something like a press, a shoulder press or chest press, or you're pulling something towards you. They're all kind of movements that replicate things you do functionally in day-to-day life. So I tend to push people and guide people towards those type of exercises. Firstly, because it does help. By doing things that replicate things you do in a day-to-day life, it's more easily recognizable to see how that's going to help you in day-to-day life. Also, by standing up and doing exercises with weights can also help the balance and stability element at the same time. And that even goes to upper body exercises where you're going up. You might wobble as you're going up and you're having to stabilize as well as create the muscle power to push the weight up in the first place. So that would generally be my preference. Equally, there is no wrong or right answer to this. As long as you're pushing your muscles to fatigue, they're going to get stronger. And if you want to use fixed weights machines for that, that's absolutely fine. And they have their pros and cons. And I'll talk a bit about the pros and cons of the fixed weights machines now. And so when I talk about fixed weights machine, they're normally the machines in a gym that you see, a bit like a leg press, where you might be slightly reclined with your feet on a kind of plate and you're pushing. And then that is then connected through a pulley system to a stack of weight plates, and you put a pin in. And then you can either lift, I think they normally go up in 2.5 kilogram increments. So you might be starting with 2.5, and you can then go up, and they vary in terms of how high they go. And the benefits come for, say, like a leg press machine is twofold. So it's great because you're sat down effectively in this reclined position with your legs up there. So as you're pushing and coming back, if that is replicating a squat action, whereas if you're doing a squat with weights, if you start to reach muscle fatigue and you've already got an element of reduced balance, as you're going through, you might have a fear that you might fall, or you might end up not being able to get back up again. And that can be quite a scary concept. And that can also, there's almost an element of our brain that holds us back slightly because of that fear. Whereas if you're in a leg press machine, you don't have that fear because you're in a safe position to start with. You're never going to fall from a leg press machine. And if you struggle to get back up again, it just comes back to a set point, and then you can take your feet off and go back again. So there is a safety element with fixed machines, and that's the same whether that's a leg press, that could be a knee extension machine where you kind of kick the leg forwards against the pad, could be a hamstring curl where you're pulling and bending the knee back against resistance. The upper body ones, you might hold a handle and push them up, back, or there's chest press. There's seated rows as well. So there's lots of different types of fixed weights machines that generally are these pulleys that are attached to a stack of weight plates that you can change. The other pro of using the fixed weights machines versus free weights, and again, I'll come back to the leg press versus a squat, even if you take the weights away from a squat and you're just trying to do body weight squats, some people struggle with that because you still have to lift your body weight up and down. And it's hard if you find that difficult, or it becomes painful on the knees or hips. It's hard to reduce or offload your body weight. So you can do things where you hold these suspension trainers, or TRX straps, or you might have your hand supporting on a surface so you can push your arms to try and take a little bit of the weight off the body. But it's hard to quantify how much you are taking off and how much the legs are still doing. Whereas if you sit on a leg press machine, you can pick the 2.5 kilogram as a lighter setting, and you can then just push your legs against that. And now you're doing far less than your body weight alone. So you're able to start on a lower weight than your body weight, which opens the doors for a lot of people to actually start to build strength in that movement pattern. And then you can start to up the weight until you find that you reach muscle fatigue, or till that threshold where pain comes in. And you can get started quicker in a safer environment with a leg press machine, and then eventually in the future make that transition over to free weights. So that's another positive for the leg press, or for fixed weights machines in general. The thing that is a bit of a con is, or something you might want to consider, is, say for a shoulder press, it's a pro and a con in both, right? So the fixed weights machine, the handle you push up and down only follows one path. There is no sideways variance, there's no rotational variance in that. It's just up and down. And if you're struggling to come up, you come down and it gets caught in a position. Whereas if you're doing that with dumbbells, as you come up and you lose fatigue, there's a risk that you might kind of drop your arm out to the side one way or the other and tweak a shoulder. And there's that fear sometimes, is when you're reaching fatigue, that you might suddenly find yourself in a position that's going to cause an injury, or at least aggravate your shoulder. Whereas a fixed weight machine will just go up and down. You don't have to fear that kind of variance there. So it's a pro in the sense that there's less chance you're going to cause yourself any kind of injuries in those early stages as you're just getting started. But equally, because it doesn't allow any of that variance, it doesn't train your muscles to start those stability muscles to work, and they don't learn necessarily how to do that stability job. Whereas if you're doing it with a free weight, at the same time you're building strength, you should learn to stabilize a shoulder. So it's a skill that you want your muscles to learn how to do, is how to stabilize as well as generate power. But in those early stages, free weights might be a better option for some people. For other people, free weights are absolutely fine. And there's nothing to stop you doing a combination of both. You could do some free weights, some fixed weights machines. Obviously, the other thing about fixed weights machine is they're big, bulky bits of equipment that tend to be very expensive. So they're not something you're going to be able to get at home. And if you did have them at home, you'd have to have multiple different fixed weights machines. So you're going to need a huge amount of space for that. So a proper home gym setup. Whereas if you're doing this from home, or have the intentions to do this from home, all you need is a few weights, a few free weights, or a set of adjustable dumbbells, and you can get started at home very quickly with the free weights. So yeah, both options out there. There isn't a wrong or right answer. The thing that is more important, that when you are doing these exercises, you are trying to push your muscles to the point of fatigue in order to build some strength. I mentioned there that I have the ebook that sort of guides you through some of those functional movement patterns. So if you're interested, it's going to help guide you through building your own 12-week strength training program, picking exercise variations that are going to work for you and your current ability levels, and help them put them into a template and a workout program that you can continue for 12 weeks or even longer. And that's a completely free downloadable ebook that you can get. So if you go to nevertooalterlift.com/start-here, you'll then find the link to be able to download that ebook. If you rather a physical sort of book and you don't like the idea of reading off a screen, then as you can see, I've got the paperback copy that's available from Amazon. So if you just search Never Too Old to Lift on Amazon, you should find that there. I've also, for anyone who wants a little bit more structured, or it's a more interactive way of going through that, then I've also got an online course. It's all rather than reading, it's all video based lessons that will guide you through exactly the same theory. So you can get it for free through the ebook, but if you want a bit of a guided, interactive way of going through that with the course, but also to have access to me on a weekly basis through some group Zoom calls that are just with members of the course, then you may well be interested in the Stronger for Life course. So that's nevertooalterlift.com/course. So again, if you're watching this live, please do comment with any questions you have. So let me just hide that. But I will start with the second question that I had that came in this week. And this person emailed saying, I'm worried about my bone density following menopause. Is it safe for me to lift weights? And I mean, the short answer is yes. And if you look, so the loss of bone density following menopause tends to be higher following menopause than it is before, or I don't know, it's not fair, but it's more likely to happen in a woman following menopause than it is for a male who's of a similar age. So it's something that happens, and that loss of bone density is something that initially we call osteopenia, which is a precursor to osteoporosis when it reaches a certain level. Now, the Theros, which is the Royal Society, the Royal Osteoporosis Society, they suggest the recommendations to not only limit the loss of bone density, but also to rebuild and gain density in the bones, is that anyone with the osteoporosis, osteopenia, should be doing weight bearing with load or impact-based exercises. Now, understandably, the thing that people with osteoporosis or osteopenia are fearful of is weight bearing with load and impact, because it makes sense that if I've got low bone density and I load it heavy, surely that's a chance that my bones might break as a result, or if I suddenly do a lot of impact, that might you view your bones as delicate and as at risk of breaking or causing kind of these osteoporotic fractures. But like I say, the recommendation is we want to do weight bearing with load and we want to add impact, because we know that that will help to increase bone density. So it's, having said that, we do need to bear in mind that the starting point, if you have reduced bone density, is lower than someone who hasn't got that worry. So we may well need to take the initial stages of progressions a lot more slowly to build confidence, to make sure we're giving the body plenty of a time to adapt, particularly the bones. But they can adapt, and they can adapt to get stronger. What we don't want to do is jump in at the deep end and then find that you've loaded way too heavy too quickly, you don't have the muscle strength to support the weight you're trying to lift, and you suddenly end up in a position where we could cause an injury, whether that's to the bones or any of the muscles around the bones. We don't want to end up in a position where we're working with free weights, and this comes back to the free weights versus fixed weights. It might be better to start off with fixed weights so that you are in a more, the position of the weights is kind of guided through a path rather than your muscles having to support that, because the last thing you want to do is drop a weight and it land on a foot or on your leg, and then that impact to the bone landing or the weight landing on there could cause an injury. So again, I'd rather people take it a lot slower, not really find the muscle to fatigue initially, build your confidence in the movement patterns, and then gradually build from there. But by gradually building and adding in weight bearing with load, and then potentially adding some impact sort of jumping based exercises in there, we can start to build that bone density, and that is going to help rather than hinder you or cause you injuries. That is often the thing. So most people who have osteopenia or osteoporosis try and stay safe, and they end up just doing things like swimming or Pilates or yoga, which again, all fantastic forms of exercise, but they're not going to be, they're all offloading body weight. So then it means you're not doing any weight bearing with load, really, a little bit with Pilates and yoga, but generally we want additional load on top of your body weight. And then we want to add in a little bit of impact as well. So strength training, not only is it safe for you to do, but it's something you should definitely be doing if you have concerns about bone density. Good. So I've got one more question that I've got prepared that I'll go through now. So it's how often, bring that up there. So how often do I need to work out? And this was actually a discussion I've just had on the group call with some of the members of the Stronger for Life online course, because I do that 10:30 every Wednesday. Is we have a group call together. It's great. It's a little bit of accountability. People can kind of check in where they've got with the course, how many times they've managed to work out. But if they've got any sticking points, they can ask me. any particular questions that have come up, and I can help kind of problem solve and guide them through. And there's one member who's just recently got started, and she was worried about, because I've mentioned within the course that anyone over the age of 65, the World Health Organization suggests that we should be doing at least 3 sessions of muscle strengthening per week. Interestingly, anyone from 18 to 64 should be doing 2 sessions of muscle strengthening per week. But the World Health Organization have recognised that over 65s need to be doing another session on top of that. We need to be doing more because it recognises that we're going to be losing strength if we're not trying to build it. So although I recommend that, that might not necessarily be the starting point of 3 sessions per week. It might be an aspiration to build towards, because this person said she's never really done it before. She has done a bit of body pump class, which does incorporate working out with weights, but it doesn't necessarily push to fatigue as early as we need to build muscle strength. So although people think they're doing muscle strengthening by doing body pump, they might not actually be achieving muscle strength. But a couple of weeks ago, I did a Q&A on, I covered that in a bit more depth in Q&A, so you can go back and have a look there if you want to. But in terms of her question and how, in the context of how she framed it, is she knows that 3 sessions per week from having not done any session, doing no sessions per week, is a big jump for her. And she's very likely to find that if she aimed for 3 per week but only managed 2, then she would see that as a very negative thing, and then almost want to stop. She'd probably find herself stopping because she felt like she's not reaching this goal of 3 sessions per week. So I sort of suggested to her that although 3 is something we might want to aspire to get to at some point, if it's by having 3 and falling short means that she's probably going to stop, and you're just going to end up back at 0, you're not going to be getting anything from any of this. So let's start with 2 sessions per week as the goal, because firstly, if you hit 2 sessions per week, that is fantastic. That is, you've just gone from nothing to 2 sessions of muscle strengthening per week. You are going to be way ahead of everybody else. You'll be ahead of 75-80% of people by going to the gym and doing 2 sessions per week. And now that you're reaching 2 sessions per week, and that was your goal, you feel like you're achieving it. And every week you do that, it's a more positive experience, and it's going to inspire you to want to do more. And you may well do a 3rd one, and that's a bonus you can add on top. And then that bonus 3rd one becomes something you end up doing more frequently. And then you might adapt your goal and then actually go for the 3 a week. But if you always started at 3 a week and you only reach 2 sessions a week, that real positive of going to the gym 2 sessions a week, you don't see it as a positive because you always feel short that you've not managed your 3rd in a week. And that then feels like a negative, or even though it's a massive positive, because you've just come from a position of doing none in a week to going to 2 a week. So I hope I kind of sort of repeating myself a bit there now, but it makes sense that if you start with smaller goals and you achieve those goals, you'll then can reevaluate, and then you can progress your goals at a later stage. Whereas if you have these big goals straight away that don't seem achievable or attainable to you, and you keep persevering and you keep falling short, you're just going to give up with the whole process and then go back to where you were. So that was one part that we talked about. And the other part that was kind of linked to this was, if you're aiming to do 2 sessions a week or even 3 sessions a week, and you normally go for half an hour, but on a particular day, you know you've only got 10 minutes available, it's still worth turning up and going through some of your workout, because if you do that, you can tick off and feel like you got something out of the workout, and it's still a positive experience for having turned up. Whereas if you don't go and you haven't found another day to repeat it or replace that with, then you're going to have a certain level of guilt for not going, and then it becomes this kind of downward spiral of, well, I didn't go today and I'm not sure. And then it tends to be, if you miss one, then that tends to kind of have a knock-on effect for a few days where you don't go for the next one. And then you think, well, I've missed most of this week now, so I'll just start next week, and then there's a risk of actually, and I'll go for another week, and then you risk not falling out of the routine, and then it's really hard work to get going again. So even just turning up for 10 minutes and doing 10 minutes of workout is much better than feeling like every workout has to be half an hour or has to be an hour. And there's a really good book, and I'll put a link in after this to the book. It's called Atomic Habits. Or if you go to the Never Too Old to Lift website and go to recommended equipment or recommended products, there's a whole book section, and some are specifically based at longevity and healthy aging, and there's a few about mindset and motivation and habit formation. But Atomic Habits by James Clear is a fantastic read if you struggle to get into this. And again, a lot of people who I am trying to work with and inspire to start strength training are over the age of 60 and want to start. So if you've got to 60 and you've never really done strength training before, it's because it's probably never really appealed to you. And the idea of it doesn't necessarily excite you. You just know it's something you need to do. So that's always hard to create that habit formation. So finding some tricks and tips that can work to help you keep a new habit is worth reading into and investing some time into. And Atomic Habits by James Clear is such a fantastic book, easy to read. There's I've read it a few times now, and there's always some different nuggets that I pick up every time. So like I say, I'll put a link in the comments as soon as I finish this live stream to where you can find that on Amazon. But yeah, do check that book out. If you are watching this live right now, then do ask your question, because that was the last question that I'd prepared ahead of time. So use the chat feature if you're on YouTube, use the comments feature if you're on Facebook, or if you're watching this after, then again, use the comments feature on both, and I will check that later. But I'll just do a reminder now. So if you are interested in learning more about strength training as an older adult, how you can get started, how you can create a program and fit it with exercises that are going to suit you and your needs, then do head over to nevertoiltolift.com/start-here, and that's a free downloadable ebook that you can get. You just need to put your first name and your email in, and that will then be sent over to you. If you'd rather have that on paperback, then you can search that on Amazon. It's Never Too Old to Lift, so just search Never Too Old to Lift on Amazon and that will come up, or I have put the link in the description below. And if you do like the idea but would like a more interactive way of going through it in videos and having those group calls with me with other members of Stronger for Life, then have a look at nevertoiltolift.com/course, and that'll take you over to the page to learn more about that there. But I think that is it, with no new comments coming through. So once again, I will be doing this on every Wednesday at 12 o'clock. It will be streamed to both YouTube and Facebook, so you can catch up with both of them there. Do make sure you subscribe to Never Too Old to Lift on YouTube, because I am going to be a lot more active on there this year. I'm going to start doing 2 videos per week on top of the weekly Q&A sessions. So by subscribing there, you'll make sure you'll see those as they come through. But for now, again, if you found any value in this video, please do give the video a thumbs up, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, and that will really help me out, just to help spread the message to more people, as it will get shown to more people in their search feeds. But for now, I will see you next week at Wednesday at 12 o'clock. Thanks for coming.